trying out Burger King's new
The
veggie burger.
Impossible.
Yeah,
And
Ugh.
how do you like it?
pretty good.
Really?
They've gotten a lot better recently.
I mean, I like veggie burgers already.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I tend to go into it not expecting it to taste like a burger. This one actually tastes fairly close to like what you would expect at a fast food place.
Yeah, I forget what other fast food chain just came out with something. I don't know if it's KFC or something. I don't know how you can make.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm actually going to be doing a
I was
positional
curious.
training.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a
workshop
veggie burger. I mean, what's like
on,
the sodium like in it though? I mean, is it like through the roof comparatively versus?
I don't know. I'll look it up.
positioning in vMOL. Because a lot of times what I find is when you take new tanks and new healers in there, they get overwhelmed. And their
There's gotta be a trade-off
take on
in
everything
this, that's
is
all.
you're trying to teach them on the fly. So since we have
I'm
the Cold
thinking the
Harbor
sodium
Estates,
probably is
it's
higher
going to be a
than
lot
the
easier to
average
set it
veggie
up
burger.
and
My
train from
first
here.
cousin and her husband are both vegan, and I've
Alright.
done various vegetarian vegan stuff before. And
Okay.
actually, some of the
Waiting for everybody
vegan
to
burgers
port in
can
here,
actually
and
taste
then
better
we'll get
than the
rolling.
regular burgers.
Oh yeah, I agree. I definitely like vegan or like veggie burgers a lot, but they don't taste like regular burgers. Like, but I love like spicy black bean burger stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you very much for coming. So we're just going to do basically a positional instruction workshop for both healers and tanks. The two fights of interest, obviously, are the twins fight and rakkhat. It's really, really hard on both tanks and healers for those two fights if they've never been there. And for people trying to train them, it's really hard to do it on the fly. So Athrad just X'd up, so as soon as she... There we go.
I've peeled it several times, but I'm always looking to learn how other people do it, and if there's better ways than what I experienced. And
One thing I want to teach healers is I want to teach them how to even out sides during neutral phase. The biggest issue with healers is that a lot of times both healers will end up on one side, and you have one healer that's healing across. It's not ideal because it's a hit or miss whether they're getting combat prayer over there. You know, they're trying to get shards on the tank, they're trying to purge. Purge can be a bit finicky and fickle, so it's really tough to heal across the whole time. There is a way that healers can realign, and so I want to teach you guys how to do that. As far as tanking, as far as tanking goes, I'm going to teach you two methods on how to handle the bosses. I'm going to review very basic mechanics for the fight on twins. So when you come in here, this door obviously is the entrance, so that's how you can orient yourself. Jen and I measured everything, so the candle line is from wall to wall, and then the candle back here is from gate to exit. So this is a mock-up of the twins room, but to size. So I grabbed some statues and I put in, this guy is supposed to be a sword and board, which is the dark boss, and then the two-hander over here, which is the light boss. So what we'll do first is we'll go over tank positioning, and we'll go over how tanks can handle the bosses at various points. So let's do this. Let me have Glitter, I want you on this side of the line. And 7, I want you...
Is this the twins?
Uh-huh, it is.
So I'm on exit side right now?
You are on exit side, correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So at the start of the fight, one of the reasons why we divide up the group like this and place them in the middle is when we pull the bosses in, you can actually, well, ultis can actually get some cleave on both bosses. So the more damage you do on them early on, the easier it's going to be. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Generally speaking, because of the way we stack up, whoever is taunting Vishai the Dark Boss, usually has melee with them. The Dark Boss, when he comes over, he's going to be literally in the melee stack. Skinra, he's going to be in your stack as well, but in the past, we've actually had range focus the Dark Boss, and the main reason for that is a lot of times, especially in newer groups, the DPS on the bosses, it's not equal, and it has to do with the mechanics of the individual bosses.
Hey, guys.
Okay,
Sorry.
hey, it's all right. So historically speaking, we've had range focus the Dark Boss even during the first site pull.
Dark is Vashai,
19
right?
months,
That's correct.
Less than
And
3,
he's right
root less
here
than 3.
on the spawn?
Nope, this is
Okay.
the Dark Boss right here.
Okay.
The light boss is here, and you can tell the difference because the Dark Boss will be a sword and board, and the light boss will be a two-hander.
Okay.
All right, so the first pull, you can do one of two things. You can range taunt your boss to you, or you can use chains if you're a DK. Chains puts a, I guess you could say, taunt light on that particular mob and pulls him over. And what you're doing is you're just trying to get them in position so that when they decide to give colors, you can cross taunt the opposite boss, because the way the mechanics work is you want the opposite color boss from the color over your head. If you have the same color boss as the color over your head, they won't take much damage at all. So that's why we cross taunt. It's because you want to maximize the amount of damage the boss takes. So when you pull the bosses in and you cross taunt, it's real easy for new tanks to over taunt. So you want to put one taunt on it and then just wait. When they turn to each other and it looks like they're squatting down, that's when the colors are going to go out. You just put a range taunt on the opposite boss, let them come to you, and then we will have our first ad. And the ad for light, if you're in this configuration, will generally drop somewhere in this vicinity here. Now I'm going to teach you guys how I tank the light boss, just because obviously I'm more familiar with that. There are various ways you can do it. I generally will hug the line. It's just how I've always done it. Part of it has to do with where the ads drop is relative to the position of the bosses to each other. So I know where that light ad is going to drop if I pull the boss here. I swing him around, I chain in the light ad, I stack him, blow a horn, and let the DPS go to town. Now, on dark side, when you cross...
The first color we get over here is light?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we'll have the Dark Boss first on
Correct,
this side.
correct.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is the same thing. You're going to taunt the light boss. He's going to come in. You're just going to hang out here, put a wall down, engulfing flames, debuff all that good stuff, hit your synergy, proc your Alkosh, and then when they squat down, you're going to range taunt the dark boss. Now, his ad will drop usually across the line right over here, somewhere in this neighborhood here, okay? So what I will do is I will do a range taunt, hit my chains, roll over to the wall, and then chain in that ad and turn him around. Now, the thing about the Dark Boss and why he historically will take less damage is because of the negates.
Right.
The negates are going to be tossed over your shoulder. That's how you want to orient yourself. So now, I've seen him turn around with a full taunt and drop a negate on the DPS.
Yeah.
Now, my thought on that, I have no confirmation, is your proximity to the cushions that are in the area, the little couches, because I'm wondering if that creates a line of sight issue.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, normally when I pull the Dark Boss and I pull the ad in, I'm probably, relatively speaking, about this far away from the wall. So I'm actually in front of the pillows and the couches.
Okay.
Okay? It used to be you'd back up against the wall to throw the negate into the wall. I find that you just take too many chances with that. Again, you don't want to line of sight that negate, and so it's better to be further out, because when we're swapping sides for color swap, the people coming over to this side can just skirt around it. Okay? So you're going to pull that, you're going to chain that add in, you're going to keep him kind of at a, I guess you could say, 45-degree angle, so that he tosses that negate over your shoulders. He'll toss anywhere from 1 to 3 negates, and it's random. Another thing about the Dark Boss is he will do a spinning heavy. And when he does it, it is the perfect time to reposition him. Because when he smacks you, you walk into him, it pushes him back. The rest of the time, you do not have to block. As a matter of fact, it's better if you don't. Because that dark ad, when she shoots those balls on the ground, if you're blocking, it will stagger you. So only block his heavy, and as soon as he's done with his spin and he staggers himself, you're going to step into him and kind of push him away from the wall a little bit. It gives you a little bit of breathing room. Okay. Normally, when he drops that negate, if you're in it, you just roll dodge out, pick him up, and turn him like this. The first drop of ads, the first, pull of ads in is the easiest. It's one ad, and you can chain him in on your way to positioning the boss, and it's not a big deal. It's the successive positionings with the Dark Boss that make it challenging. All right, so that's the initial pull. So for the Light Boss, when you chain your add in, you're basically taunting the Light Boss and turning him this way. And your DPS need to be on his backside for 2 reasons. One, he has kind of a unpurgeable cleave kind of dot that he can put on your DPS or your healers if they're behind you. Also, 2, they need to be on his ass to bash him. The channel that he does, you can't break free. So you become helpless until that channel is bashed. His ad will do the same thing. So it's the DPS's responsibility to bash that and stop that. When you guys tank the Light Boss, trust me, you will understand why I get so mad when he's not bashed.
I remember those days.
Does it have to be a bash, or can it be a ranged interrupt as well?
I just feel like the bash is faster.
The bash is faster, and
There should always be someone there to do it.
Right.
yeah, the issue comes when we are transitioning. Okay, when he puts out his color change on 3 people, it could be 3 DPS. So essentially, what's left on your side is 1 DPS and 1 healer.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, though. Everybody should be on the ass anyway.
Correct.
So there should always be someone there to bash, no matter what.
Correct.
Like,
I
you don't
only
want to
ask
do a ranged interrupt, because chances are, if you're having to do that, where are you?
You're too far. Yeah.
I only ask because I do a lot of work with a lot of brand new people in trials, and
Yeah.
I heal, and I can have crushing shock if I'm not getting what I need.
I mean, yeah,
from
it'll
them.
work.
It will,
Okay.
but
Well,
it's
That's
yeah.
the only reason
them
I
to
ask, yeah.
sit on its ass for sure. It's,
Yeah.
it's the easiest way too,
Right.
even, especially for new people, to just say,
Right.
"Hey, you got to stand all together." Period. That's easier than running around all over the place.
Right.
Sometimes, yes, that's.
And that
I wish they would do
actually
that all the time.
actually that is the responsibility of the raid leader, to corral people who are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. If
Like
you
Neon Max Sword.
no. But here's the thing. If your DPS are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, if your healer is too, the problem that you run into, 2 things. One, obviously, they're not getting maximum DPS because they're not getting buffs. They're not getting that combat prayer buff. And it used to be, and I mean, when I healed this and I basically said, you're not in front of me, you're losing 8% DPS. Of course, that was back in the day when Nightblades had their own. But now, they've got to be in front of you. Okay? And as the healer, it's your responsibility to be fairly tied up. The problem with new people is they get scared. They don't like to be that close to a boss. Especially if their range, if that's their build. They're like, I'm going to hang out back here. But what happens if you're hanging out back here and color swap goes out? What happens if you don't get a color swap and you're back here?
Or the balls from the dark boss fly across the room, even though they're not supposed to, and they hit you, and like you're not in heals. That would really suck.
The problem with being out here, where are these people going to run when they're color swapping? Right into you. And they're going to blow your ass up. And here's why. Because the color drop-off doesn't happen instantaneously. As they're moving across, the color is starting to change. But frankly, until they get across that line, it a lot of times is still there. So you hanging out here as a DPS, you're not doing your team any favors. So what if you get a color swap and you're hanging out back here? Guess what? You've got a long way to go before you can cross over. So then what happens is you're hanging out here, you get a color swap and you panic. What do? Boom.
Go the wrong way.
You just blew up
Go
your
the opposite
teammates.
way.
Exactly. That's why it is so important to be on that light boss's ass. I don't care if you're DPS, I don't care if you're healer. If you're healing light boss side, then you need to be on their butt. If you are healing across, you need to be kind of on the line, a little bit back. Again, this position right here is very dangerous because you've got people crossing the line here. If you wanted to be on this side, healing across, you could. You'd have to be fairly close to the wall, okay? Because you don't want to get in that cleave. But again, you know, this position also has its challenges because there's a negate here or here, and it just, it's a cluster, okay? So the idea for the light boss we've got. Now, what about the dark boss? Well, let's do this. Let's do this.
Archimus.
Somebody gonna be in trouble.
Wait, where am I standing when I'm tanking him? Oh, right here.
Yeah, you're taking, yep, exactly. From that position there. Okay. So hang on just a sec. So hold on to that question because I'll get to it in just a second. So we're going to be back here, all right? And because we want to be able to move quickly back if a negate comes in a wonky place, all right? You don't have to be on his ass. As a matter of fact, preferentially, it's good if you're not. If you're melee, it's okay, but you have to be very mindful of the negates so you don't get stuck in it. What was your question?
Might be max melee range if
Yeah.
you could.
Yeah.
You just answered my question.
Okay.
Just don't stack on the dark boss's ass.
No, there's no reason to
Okay.
at all.
I got it.
And also too, think about it. You know, you're back here, max range. If you get color swap, you've got a fairly long way to run. Okay, so you don't want to be so close that you increase the distance you have to run. Now, if he drops 3 negates, there's a very strong possibility everyone's going to end up right in this area here, and it just is the way it is. Okay. All right, so that's with 1 ad on each side. So we get 1 ad on each side at the first split. They then go into prayer phase, where they both shoot up into the ceiling and then they come down on one side or the other. If you're on this side with the dark boss, and the dark boss lands here at the exit, you stay put. So if the boss you were fighting returns to the same side, you stay put. If the other boss comes a-visiting, we need to run away from him, because where are we running? We're running to the boss that we had. A dark boss is going to be over here. For the light boss, if he goes up in the air and he comes down on this side and you are fighting him on this side, you stay put. If the dark boss comes a-visiting, you're going to run away. Now, one mistake a lot of people make, especially a lot of new players, when those guys go up in the air, is a lot of them are stacked over on this side over here, and they're just kind of hanging out and waiting. Again, the problem is, if you have to move to the opposite side, you have a little bit further to run. And remember, as soon as they do that explosion, if you're on the wrong side, you're gonna die. So a lot of times what I tell people is when they're up in the air, start moving. You can't DPS anyway. They're not on the ground, they're not in front of you. So start moving over here to this side. If you don't have to switch, that's fine. But if you do, you're closer to the line over here to move across. It's all about understanding what mechanic is going to come next, anticipating it, and moving accordingly. So then, let's do this. This is going to be, I'm going to teach tanks 2 different kinds of swaps. So, I'm going to move this boss. So there's 2 ways to swap, and it's good to be proficient in both because it depends on what group you're running with as to what they do. The first swap is you essentially stay on your side, you get the color from the boss that's here, and then you cross taunt. So the dark would come over here, and the light would come over there. You will find that's actually the more common method of switching bosses. Why do you switch bosses? Well, if you're hanging out here and you get the light aspect, you can't damage him. So you've got to bring the dark boss over to take damage. Okay? So, Glitter, I want you right about here. Okay, and 7, yeah, that should reach right about here. You do not have to run to the line in order to get your range taunt off, based on the distance, okay? So stay there.
Yeah. I wish we had like dummies, target dummies to be as. Could chain them. Oh, shit. Mm.
Is you tab target
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
and range taunt him. And when he
To pull him back.
well, what you're gonna do is you're gonna
Pull his
range.
gun back?
You're just gonna range taunt him so he shoots the balls at you and not across the line.
And then wait for the negate.
You bet. wait for the negate, roll out, chain him in, and then
Okay.
there you go. Okay?
So just don't like try to get him, chain him in right away and risk dropping a negate like
Correct.
all right here and shit.
Correct. Now, I have seen where this fucker has taken forever to drop his negate, and so you don't get cleave. Okay, it's just a risk. You know, it's since it's just one ad, really and truly,
Should be okay.
it should be fine. But it's better to control the negate and range taunt the ad than, you know, drop the negate on the DPS, which can
A
happen.
badly placed negate's gonna drop DPS
Yep.
anyway.
Yep, exactly. Now, 7. Your position, while you think is easy, because he's right there,
Right.
he is going to, as soon as he crosses the line, he does 2 things. 1, he does that lunar flare to 3 people that has to be purged. And then when you position him, he is going to channel you right when they drop. That's why it's so important the DPS are on his ass paying attention. And that's why you will hear me tilt, and I will tell them, get up on his ass as a reminder. Because the problem is this. Yep, just like that. If you don't get him in quickly, guess where he likes to go? All up in glitter shorts.
Yay.
And not only that, but he will literally run and be between glitter and the dark boss.
Okay.
So you can't even fucking
Pretty
chain him
fucked up
in.
to try to get him back.
Yeah, it's a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you see, like when I'm tanking these, if you see a light ad over on that side, it's because the channel went off too long. Now, some people will tell you, range taunt that light ad. That's risky as fuck. Because of the direction he likes to run, guess who's right here?
The dark boss.
You bet. You run a real strong risk of taunting the dark boss.
Oh, yes.
So
That'd be bad.
it can be very, very bad. So the ideal situation is your DPS are paying attention, they bash the boss, and you're able to pop your chains off and get him in quickly. As soon as you get him in, you just kind of hang here. You're going to do your horn, and they're going to DPS, and then colors are going to go out, and then that's going to swap, okay? And we go back to neutral. And if you're going to be just doing cross taunt, the next round, you're going to have the light boss, or the dark boss, excuse me. And glitter's going to have the light. So that's the tank swapping bosses. The other method is tanks back to original bosses. And this is the one actually that I use more in TBC. It's just a all right. So 7, you're on this side. Okay, you were tanking this light boss. Glitter's on the dark boss side over there. Okay. She wants to keep the dark boss and you want to keep the light boss. But you need opposite aspects, right? So what you're going to do is when they land, you're going to pierce. And then you are going to go to the edge, wait for the explosion, and then cross over, keep an eye on your head. And you're just going to hang out here. You're not going to do anything with this boss. You're just going to hang here to get the aspect. And then what happens is, I will usually come up to the line. I will do a range taunt. They will come to me. And I've got my light boss back.
Cool.
Okay, so those are the two methods.
And we just swap sides whenever we're neutral, basically.
Correct.
So we keep the same boss every round.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The pluses to that are that you really learn that particular boss and you become very, very adept at it. Okay. And it's just, I mean, again, I can do it both ways. I prefer this method, but I can do it the other way. So those are the 2 ways. So you either go back to original bosses or you swap bosses. That's it. Now, healers. Let's show you guys how we align the sides. Sinley, I want you right here. Okay. Bay, I want you and Dark here. Okay. Bay and Dark, you guys got the color swap. Sinley did not. So you had to come over to this side and heal across. Alright? I'm pretending like you guys are one person. So, just FYI. Alright, so they go up in the air. And we get our light boss back on this side. Okay? At neutral, you can actually switch sides with the DPS on this side. And that's how you realign. Now here's the issue. You have to pick them out right after you switch sides for color swap. You have to give them a heads up. Okay? Because there's a limited amount of time that they have to cross at neutral, as do you. So, colors go out, healer swapping, Sinley calls out healer staying, you call out, I'll heal across. You look over there, and you see Athrad. Athrad, I need you to swap with me at neutral. And Athrad said, got it. Alright, so they go up in the air, they come down, room explodes, swapping sides, boom. That's how you level out the sides. And it's always, always, always the healer who swaps sides initially. Sinley didn't switch sides, she's going to stay here. You switch sides, you're going to call it out. And then you're going to swap at neutral. And that way we have a healer on each side.
Okay, so if you are the one that got the color change, you're having to heal from the middle, you're the one that swaps, not the other healer. That's what you're saying.
Correct. Correct. Alright, Sinley, I want you here. And Dark, I want you here. And it doesn't matter if you're healing light or dark, it's the same process. Alright, so Sinley, come with me. Color change goes out. Sinley, you get a color. Dark, you do not. Call it out.
You're swapping?
And then Dark, you'll...
Staying.
There you go. Alright, Sinley, move with me. And you're going to come here. And you're going to look across right now and pick someone.
Ao, swap with me at neutral.
Very good. And then Ao will say...
Nothing. He'll say
Something. Say something.
Yeah, you've got to acknowledge it. Yeah, you can just say, check, Roger, gotcha, no problem. Some acknowledgement that you heard that, so that we know at neutral there is going to be a switch. All right, so they go up in the air, they come back down, boom, the room explodes. Do your swap now. Nope, Sinley, you don't have to cross over that way. So this is where you have to pay attention to the color over your head. As a healer, you're already in the middle, okay?
Okay.
So you would just back up a little bit from the line if you're not switching sides, wait for the explosion, and then just walk across here. Now the thing to be mindful of, okay, and this is why we tell people not to switch in the middle, because the healer who's healing across, that's their domain, okay? But you just need to be sure as you're crossing over that color is dropping off your head. I have blown people up as a tank switching sides too fast. You're next to the line, you don't have far to go. About 2
After the
seconds.
explosion. Okay.
If you're on the line, you know, a couple seconds, but don't wait too terribly long. I would literally just kind of cross over and watch and make sure that EO's moving that direction.
And that I get the...
And then you
color
once
also
yeah,
taken.
once he's across and you're across and everything is kosher, you come up here and you get your color. And you're good. Okay.
Now, as soon as I cross, should I try to light attack the boss from the line to try to help mitigate or try to help encourage the right color?
No. The colors are given out based on proximity. It has nothing to do with damage at all. So if you, and this is why you will hear me and Jen call out if someone has died. Tanks, hug your bosses. The tanks absolutely have to get the correct color. Okay? The reason we call out hug your bosses is because color distribution is based on proximity. So we want the tank basically in the boss's shorts to make sure they get the color. Damage is not a factor in it at all. It's all proximity.
I have a question, Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why when we first start, everybody is to stack to make sure that the 6 and 6 get the correct color and nobody explodes?
Correct. Because, think about it. If you have 7 on one side and 5 on another, and your sides are uneven, you're going to have somebody get the wrong color. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, that's a horror show waiting to happen.
It is. And we've had it happen. So that's why normally when I run this, I do the exact same thing every single time. My melee on entrance, my range on exit, my healers split to the same sides every time. So that they know, okay, yeah, I'm in the right spot. I don't mix them around because I want people to develop good habits. Now, let's do something a little bit more complex. So we're gonna have Dark here. He's healing the light boss. Sinley, you're gonna be healing across here. Okay, you got a color swap and Dark did not. And we're here and they go up, boom, and they come back down, but it's the Dark boss that lands. So Sinley, this is where that movement of yours, you have to be very aware of the people around you and the people coming at you. I would say in that regard, try not to switch in the middle, but you don't have to go far. I would just run down to about here-ish to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room and then cross over. You're the closest to the line. You have the most amount of time to get in position.
Yeah, I've got to watch people coming this way because we'll still probably have the opposite colors. But right when they land, I can already start moving closer to here. But I also have to watch these running across over on this side.
Nope, you don't. And here's why. You're in this position right here. Do you have to pay attention to these guys? Yes, you do. You do not have to pay attention to these guys. You're
in the same color.
Yeah, exactly. And your focus, as far as your healing, it doesn't stop. You're still responsible for healing that opposite side. Okay? So turning around and worrying about these guys is just a waste of time. You are going to pay attention to what's across this line. You're going to be healing those guys as they move. And then boom, you're on the correct side. Don't take your eyes off of them. Don't worry about these guys. Dark has them under control. And they're not going to blow you up because you're all the same color. So when you swap sides, okay, both you and Dark are going to be on this side. Again, it's paying attention. Okay, neutral. You're going to switch with your partner and realign.
Dragon, I got a question.
Shoot.
So now, and I have to be pushed to talk because I'm in a common room, so bear with me here. Now, if I'm, okay, now I'm working with 2 fingers here, so bear with it. Okay, so now I'm healing across.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying don't go center, you're saying go a little left?
Yeah.
So a little here?
A little, actually, if it depends relative to the position of the boss that's on your same side. So if the boss is in this area right here, you're going to be kind of catty like this. If you're on the same side as the Dark boss and he's over there, you're going to be kind of roughly in this area here, healing across. The idea is that as the center across the way healer, you don't have very far to move, but you don't want to go strictly right across the middle.
Okay.
Just give yourself a little bit of wiggle room so that the others can breathe. Okay. And again, one thing that I find healers do when they're in this position is they get a little freaked out and they forget about that group over there. They still need purges. They still need orbs. The tanks still need shards. And they still need to be healed. So what I tell people is get in the habit of facing them as you're moving across so that you don't forget about them.
And basically just don't turn around because that's stuff you don't have to worry about because
Correct.
the other healer has it.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm, you know, doing is going to make it much easier.
It will. It will. It's just really hard to explain it in the room when the bosses are in there.
Oh, of course.
But
No,
that's
you and Jen did a great job in here. I mean, it's great.
this is actually a really good exercise. And so what we're gonna do is this. Bay, I want you and 7 on this side of the line where I'm jumping. Dark Fox, I want you on this side as their DPS. Over here, 7 and Sinley and Paul. I want you over here. Okay.
You told me to go on both sides.
Hmm?
I think, did you...
told 7 to go over here?
No.
And then you told him to go
No.
over here.
I want Glitter. 7, you can stay here. That's fine.
Okay.
I was thinking Glitter. I just said 7.
Yeah, we're like the same person. It's
All right.
crazy.
All right, so let's do this. Athrad, I want you here on this side. Leviathan, I want you on this side. Okay. And Hoot, I want you here. We're going to be 1 person short. And then Eo, I want you over here. 1 person short each side. So, no biggie. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a mock-up, and I'm going to move the statues. Okay?
Let me stand a little closer than this, or no?
And generally speaking, about 1 box away from it, roughly, is about where you can stand. You don't want to stand any closer than that on both sides. So stack up nice and tight. Glitter on this side is your who you position to. So move in real nice. There you go. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. Perfect. And then this side, excellent. All right, so we got good stacking. You see how close you are to each other. This is why it's super important that that you have the correct number. All right. So Glitter, turn this direction. 7, turn the opposite direction.
I do not remember. Am I like right here? I just think that's where you usually kind of go when we do it. Like you just like turn him.
Last time we were in here, the light bosses were oriented the other way. Okay.
This way. So I'll be oriented at a 90-degree angle from the door.
So I'm like this to try to get my ad.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like this once it's all
Yep.
put together.
Exactly.
Where does my ad usually go?
He usually drops like right in this area here.
Okay.
And so
that's
you
one
just
like this.
yeah,
You
so
could
you
get 'em-
yep, exactly. All right, so colors are going out. Let's have Sindley and Hoot Pocket on this side.
Do
I want
tanks
you.
ever get it?
Nope. As long as you've got an active taunt, they do not. All right, so Sindley and Hoot Pocket, you guys got color swap. And on this side, Leviathan and Dark, you got color swap. All right.
So we would call healer swapping.
Right? And Bay would call.
Killer thing.
Exactly. All right, so Sindley, I would actually probably position myself right about here. Okay? Because Bay's got the dark. You're going to have to heal the light group. And this is generally the best position. You can hit him with a combat prayer 9 times out of 10. You can get him with a purge. Okay? All right. So, they go up and
Wait, the dark one drops out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to do anything. Oh yeah, then we get a color. And then
Doesn't
yeah, so we're maybe probably gonna do cross taunt
Mm-hmm.
potentially. Mm.
Artemis. Swap it neutral.
Okay.
Okay, healer moving.
Swapped.
So we cross taunt during neutral. So I need to make sure I get this one here.
if you're roughly in this area here, you're gonna get the color as long as nobody's dead. Okay?
Okay.
And then you can come up to about here and just do your taunt.
So I'm probably taunting after I get my color then.
Yeah. It's very
Get my
soon.
color and then I'm taunting.
Yeah, it's very soon.
And I would assume if we have somebody dead, when I cross the line, once I see the color is dropped off, the next thing I need to do is go and get as close to the boss as I can.
Can I have my boss?
Ooh.
Yeah.
And then my ad's probably out there. Okay. Okay, so
Okay.
the other method is I taunt my boss here or whatever, and I run across. And so then I'm collecting the color on this side, and my boss is running over here when it's ready to come over here then. Okay. Okay. So that's just safer though, like in case shit happens. Hmm. And you go get your color for sure. Yeah, because I did notice when other TBC runs, when we would do cross taunt, like I'd hear I got the wrong color shit a lot from the tanks. So because DPS were fucking up. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to understand what the use of both methods and it sounds cool. Yeah, but you're not factoring in like shit going not great. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you're looking at their names over their heads, and you're like, Yasmina Stormrend, who the hell's that? Oh wait, that's you know what I mean? So you have to know your team for it to be relatively easy. But as soon as you cross that line, you look across and pick somebody out immediately. And as soon as you pick somebody out, then you don't worry about it. You just cross it neutral. Now, we've had mistakes made where either the healer forgot to cross, or the DPS forgot to cross, or they crossed late. This is just kind of an aside with this fight. If you're not sure, because sometimes rendering is fucked up, if you're not sure the color over your head, back up to this wall and give it a minute and look down, because there is a box in Raid Notifier, and I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, it actually does a head for color.
Right, I don't have Raid Notifier
yellow,
on. Yeah, there's
yellow or purple. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and so you just give yourself some time and some space to figure out what your color is. And if your color is dark, you need to run to light boss side. If your color's light, obviously you run to dark boss side. Now, is it an automatic wipe if the tank has the same color as the boss? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because essentially what the issue is you don't want the tank getting close to the DPS who have the opposite color.
So they gotta back up.
They gotta back up, but they can still DPS. You can still do the mechanics,
as long as you're not blowing up the tank.
Right.
Because the tank's not DPSing the boss,
right.
So it doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter.
Correct. Another point, if the tank has the same color as the boss, that can be problematic is when color swap goes out and you have these people running across. They have to be mindful of where the tank is so they don't blow the tank up. But you know, just because the tank gets the same color as the boss they're holding, it doesn't automatically mean a wipe. It just means the DPS need to wake the fuck up. And just be mindful, you know. The problem with this fight for newbies is it goes at light speed in the beginning. There's so much going on that you can't take in all of it at once. So it does slow down, and then you do realize it's a dance.
Are you recording this, Dragon?
I am streaming actually, so we have this.
Son of a bitch. Never know these things.
But you guys are asking very good questions. I mean, you know, and again,
they're like, "Damn, has Glitter been like what the?"
It's completely different as a tank and a healer as opposed to DPS in here. We have to pay attention to more because we're having to take care
Hey,
of
GOT Tyrion, thank you so much for that
where
follow. I
DPS
appreciate
has
it.
to be on the right side.
Yeah.
You know, the thing for this particular fight is, can healers heal across without realigning at neutral? Yeah, they can, but it's not optimal. It really isn't. Because a lot of times your combat prayer doesn't reach. A lot of times, you know, your purge won't reach because even though purge is supposed to be a smart skill, it's not. So you want to realign your healers if at all possible. And tanks can work out either method of either back to original bosses or switching bosses, it doesn't matter as long as they're both on the same page. Oh, that's right, Seminole Girl. I'm sorry. Welcome. So that's the twins fight in a nutshell. Now, I have a question for you guys. Understanding that this isn't going to really drive it home until you actually do it, do you feel at least a little bit more comfortable on positioning?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
definitely do.
I know
Okay.
where
Yes, ma'am.
I'm supposed to stand for the most
Okay.
part, whereas I was just going to be all over the place.
Okay. Oh, couple of things about the bosses themselves. Like I said, the dark boss, he does a spinning heavy that you need to block, but pretty much everything else you can take. The light boss, he does a heavy with his two-hander. It won't kill you. It'll knock you on your ass, though. He does the lunar flare, which hits 3 people, and yes, it can hit the tank, and yes, it does need to be purged. But that's pretty much the extent of their abilities. The mini ads, the mini light ad, it doesn't do a heavy, but it does do a channel, and it does do a lunar flare. The dark mini, again, the ball's on the ground, and that's pretty much it. Now, the ball's on the ground, so quick word on that. If you don't taunt that ad, and he turns towards the light group, and he shoots those balls across the room, the further away that ad is from those light people, the harder it's going to hit them. So that's why you want to get him turned towards the group. And ideally chained in after the negate's dropped. Now, there have been times when I have chained in the dark ad, and then I get a negate on me, and I'm rolling out of it, and I've got the boss here, and the ad is there, and they're immune from chains for 6 seconds. Well, that's just tough shit. I think you can just chain them in when the immunity drops. They'll die.
Why are they immune for 6 seconds?
It's just the chains themselves. You can't chain them, one after the other.
Is it possible, Dragon,
Oh,
in
what
that?
you're saying is like you chained him, then some shit went down with the negate, and now you're just gonna have to wait to bring him back
Right,
in again.
exactly.
Sorry, but I interrupted somebody.
Oh, no, that's fine. Would it be possible, Dragon, if you had a mag decay that could chain at that split second, or is that too risky?
So here's the thing. Back in the day, when we first started doing this, we had a DK on both sides. We had a DK that would help chain light ads. We had a DK that would help chain dark ads. And not only did you have to do healer realignment, you had to do DK realignment too. Because you had to make sure that at least the dark boss had a DK on its side to chain. The DPS has gotten so high compared to then that it's just more advantageous for the tank to chain. Now, the problem with that is as more ads drop, the more complicated it gets, and then negates
The more
go.
I'm shitting myself.
The more that there are a shit ton of negates in fucked up places.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So here's the thing about additional ads. Most groups I'm in, we get 1 ad on the initial, 1 ad on the first realignment. You're supposed to get 2 ads on the next realignment, but DPS is so high, we go straight to 3 ads. Now, I'm lucky on caffeines because the DPS is so fucking high.
Yeah, we've blessed you, okay?
I know that I don't really worry about chaining ads in. When we get 3 ads, the bosses are so low in health that what I do is I deep breath to interrupt them, to interrupt those channels. And light boss goes down. As soon as one of the bosses dies, the colors are supposed to drop off of everyone. Now, have I seen people blow up with just 1 boss up? Yeah, I have. There's another mechanic that's very rare, but it's happened to me twice. And that is if they die before the explosion or right during the explosion, when they go up in the air and come down, it blows up the room. I don't know why that is, but it will happen. So if they've got a sliver of health, pull DPS off and let the room go to neutral, and then you can kill him. When the one boss is up, depending on your DPS, you have a finite amount of time to kill him, because at a certain point he will port to the middle and he will start channeling, and as soon as his channel is done, it's a room-wide wipe.
Question, Dragon.
Yeah.
I know I'm asking a ton of questions.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, that's good.
Now, if that situation occurs, now let's say this guy is the one that dies.
Uh-huh.
Right? We're all over here, he dies, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Now, the other guy is over there.
Yes.
If range works from here, would it be better for range to just keep DPSing and not take the chance of going across?
No, I'd go ahead and go across. It's
Okay.
rare that it happens that colors don't drop off. But you're much better off coming in. And here's one of the reasons why. If everybody comes in, okay, then the ads are going to just naturally go towards you guys. It's easier for me to deep breath and keep those light ads interrupted. So we just all dogpile on the boss over here. Okay? In the event that your DPS is not that high, and you actually have to chain ads in, you can chain ads in, and the way you do it, and it drives my team crazy, but if DPS is low, you've got the boss in front of you here, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to chain an ad, you're going to walk back, chain an ad, walk back, chain an ad, because what's going to happen is you can only chain one at a time. So they're going to be all moving towards the dark boss, okay? So I will chain and walk back in order to make sure that I'm able to see them and pull them in. When you get them in, hit a deep breath immediately, because I guarantee you they will start channeling as soon as you pull them in. When you have a light ad that's stuck over here and he channels across the line, the DPS on this side need to bash him. Okay, because that will be bad. There are times when you can't get them in. You do your best. Okay, that's why it's so important that the DPS bash the main boss when the first channel goes out. Because if they don't, even if they let it go for a second to 2 seconds, it's going to be a nightmare to get those ads in when you're chaining them yourself. Now, on the dark boss, okay, whoa, 3 ads. Wow. The furthest ad away, you range taunt. Okay? Normally what I will do at that point is I really won't care where the negate drops. I'll swing around, I'll range taunt this ad here, and then I'll try and chain or range taunt. Now, there is occasionally you'll get a dark ad that actually drops on the backside. And you can chain that one in. But the idea is to at least get range taunts on those dark ads with the furthest one out first. So that at least they're shooting the balls in the correct direction. If the negate happens to drop behind the boss for whatever reason, because you turn to chain or what have you, it's on the DPS to get the fuck out of the way. They just can dodge roll out of it. Okay. So healers realigning, tanks deciding on how they're going to manage their bosses are the 2 key points. And all of that needs to be decided ahead of time, obviously. As far as horns go, we'll have a horn here in the middle on the initial drop. Then when we split up and we've got our little ad and we've got our boss on each side, by that time, it'll be time for another horn. Exactly. And you horn on both sides. And that's when you'll hear me say horn on light. You'll hear Fel say horn on dark. You'll also hear me say, I want a healer horn in the middle at neutral. So as soon as you switch sides or as soon as the room explosion goes off, I'll have a healer call out, I'll do horn, and they'll shoot a horn in the middle. You want to try and keep your horn up time as, you know, as high as possible. So you'll have a healer horn in the middle at neutral, and then when the bosses cross sides and the ads drop, that'll be about the time for the tanks to do their horns again.
Would it be advantageous for the healer that has switched and is healing across to have that ready?
Well, hopefully,
Okay.
we'll realign, so you won't be healing across with the next round.
Right,
And-
but the healer that's waiting to switch or is working on switching at neutral is the closest to the middle at that point, right?
Yeah, but that's not neutral. And you're right as far as swapping at neutral, but also too, it just depends on whose horn is up. And so you'll hear me call out them by name. You know, Axe, I need your horn at neutral, because I'm looking over there and Axe is the only one who has a horn up. You know, so it's not always the case, because it depends on who I have used the horn on the first pull. Because there is a possibility that they won't have it back up.
Yeah, because Hodor be telling you that.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Exactly. Now, at the time, let's just say colors go out, neither healer swaps, we're golden. Colors go out, both healers swap, we're golden. It's only when you have one healer that swaps and the other one stays that you have to, as soon as you move across, look back at your team and you call out a swap. Archimus, I need you to swap with me at neutral. Got it. Okay, then you're good. And you just heal across, heal across, heal across until they jump. And you either stay or you rotate. And then as soon as the room explodes, healer swapping, DPS swapping, and you're good.
Okay, I know I'm being a nuisance with all these questions.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so now over here. Okay, so I have come over to center. I'm healing across.
Mm-hmm.
I turn around and the boss is different from the color I am.
It should be.
So, okay. So then I switch.
Yeah.
But, okay. But now what happens with the DPS at that point? This is where I'm getting confused.
Okay, so you have a healer on each side to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Colors go out, and the circle under your feet changes color, so you have to move. So you rotate with the other two DPS that are moving, and you hear that the other healer is staying put. You turn around, and you heal the team you left.
Correct.
Across the line.
That I got. Now, when they go to neutral, let's say I'm dark, and who lands is dark. Don't I have to move to the other side?
Yes, you do. So that's when I say you just kind of do a little jog in the center here.
Okay.
Okay. You don't have to go all the way back and all the way around. You don't want to cross in the middle, but you can do a little jog here. And then boom, cross over here. And then turn around. Wait for the explosion. And then you call out healer crossing, DPS crossing. You've realigned. And then you'll get the correct color. Because...
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm really sorry about this. So if I'm healing across, this guy lands, the guy that's to your right, he lands. He is now the same color as what I am. Now I have to move across, but now we have two healers on one side. Does that automatically send the DPS to the other side?
No. So when you get a color swap and you move over here, okay, and you're healing across and they jump up in the air, and instead of, the opposite color boss dropping, you get the same color boss dropping, both you and the other healer are going to switch sides. So yes, you're still going to have two healers on one side.
Okay.
Because the whole team has to move, not just you.
Okay.
So when they go up in the air in prayer phase and they come back down, and it's the same color as what's over your head, the entire team has to move. So you, the other healer, the DPS, and the tank have to move sides.
Because if you're on the wrong side during the explosion too, most people can't survive that.
So here's this. Here, think of it this way, Bay. Okay. Ignore the other healer.
Okay.
Ignore the other healer. Exactly. So you're paying attention to your color. You're paying attention to the boss. Same color boss drops as what's over your head. You know you're going to have to move. Don't worry about the rest of them.
Got it.
And then when the explosion goes off and the color goes away from the floor, that's neutral. You should have already picked someone out to swap with you long before that.
Okay.
If you didn't, do not switch sides. You're going to have to continue to heal across.
Okay, one more question. I promise I'll be quiet.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so now same color guy. This guy is now same color.
Mm-hmm.
I run across.
Mm-hmm.
I wait for the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I to tell the DPS that I've moved across to let them know that I'm on this side now?
Nope.
Or...
Nope.
No.
So here, you have to also think that, okay, so you know how you had to move with your team across? The other team had to move as well.
So the DPS is already on the other side?
Yep, exactly.
Got it. Okay, the light has gone on. Got it.
So, yeah, exactly. Now, when the colors go out and you realize you have to move, but the other healer does not, as soon as you stop and turn around, you pick someone out. Hoot, I need you to swap with me at neutral. Hoot says, sure, no problem. And then they go up in prayer phase, they come down, oh shit, same color, we're going to have to rotate. Don't worry about Hoot. Hoot's rotating too, because he can't stay on the same side.
Right, because got it, okay. Now it's, I've just never done this DPS thing, so that's why I'm asking so many questions.
That's fine, no, I'd rather you ask the questions than not. And then the room explodes, healer crossing, Hoot calls out DPS crossing, and we are even and realigned.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so now I've gone over here. Hoot's already on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Explosion goes off, and then you cross. All right. So that's it for the twins. Do you guys have any additional questions on that?
Yeah, I do actually. It's a
Shoot.
clarifying question. I think it's dumb, but I'm gonna ask it.
No, go ahead.
So when you were talking about the tank, so basically if the tanks have to swap here, and you basically said they're gonna drop, this tank will drop a taunt, and then book it over to the other side to get the right
Color. Mm-hmm.
color. DPS stays on the
Yep.
other side?
Yep. DPS, they don't
They
move.
Don't move. It's just...
They don't move. It's just the tanks moving and healers realigning if necessary. But the DPS stay put.
So the idea is we're going to get the buff over here before this boss crosses to the other side.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I have a question, Dragon.
Shoot.
So when we say like light side or dark side, are we talking about the colors we have or the color of the boss we have?
Boss.
Okay.
Yep. Now, one thing I will do, and this is something that I did when I was healing, if shit got crosswise and I was confused and I couldn't pick people out, I would call out, I am healing dark boss. And the other healer would tell me, I'm healing light boss. It helped me realign in my head to make sure I was doing the proper thing. Also, too, I would do that in case I died and I got rezzed, then I would be saying, healing dark boss, I'm healing light, you're good. The tanks, regardless of what method you use, the DPS will stay put after the explosion. Because you're either going to rotate or stay put in prayer phase, but you're definitely going to stay put in neutral. DPS are. All right. So the next half of this instructional workshop is the final boss. And this is more, it'll be tank and healer, but we're going to start out with tank. So you do have an off tank that's responsible for picking up the Hulk. The Hulk will spawn at pads 2, 4, and 6, and 8. You also have a main tank who is actually going to be tanking Rakkhat. Everybody except the tanks and the healers, I want you guys to stand here in a group. You guys are going to be rakkhat. Okay. You know, there's that big circle that rakkhat's on, that big pad. Okay? Initially, there's no color to it. But then it will turn blue. If you happen to be stepping on that, you're going to get a debuff. Okay? So, as DPS, you need to be mindful of that. Now, the tanks. So, how do we start this? There we go. So, the tank's going to be on pad 1. The main tank. Rakkhat's going to be in the center. Okay? If you don't do a center stack, what you're going to do is you're going to do a countdown. You're going to call out 3, 2, 1, stop at the edge, pierce, and you're going to stay here. You're going to stay here until the pad behind you turns gold. And he jumps in the air. Now, I'm not saying he jumps to the pad. I'm saying he'll jump in the air once on the middle pad. But you want him to stay put as long as possible. So as soon as that pad turns gold, you're going to go back here, and you're going to stack up on this edge of the pad. And you're going to face him and do a ranged taunt. Because when he jumps to you, he's going to stun you, and you don't want that taunt falling off. And what you'll do is you're just going to walk this way. So he has his back to the group, and you're facing the group. But you're on the pad, and you've got that protective buff. The off tank is going to be with the group, buffing the group. They're going to be putting a circle of protection down. They're going to be putting an altar down. They're going to be hitting a synergy for their Alkosh. They're going to put an orb out. They're going to do whatever it is they do to buff. Okay? Wall, engulfing, all that good stuff. When he hops, the off tank's going to come back here with the group. Okay? And he's just going to keep debuffing. So the question is, how do I know when I'm supposed to move as the main tank? As soon as that pad starts to turn gold, you move. And where you're going to position yourself is, if you looked at the pad behind you, you would be looking at the top of that circle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because when you taunt him and he hits you, you're going to be stunned. You want to walk again, like this, so his back is to the DPS. And that's how you're going to go to each pad. Okay? Or at least that's the position you're going to end up on each pad. So you'll start here. He's in the middle. You're going to go 3, 2, 1, pierce. Stay here, stay here. The pad turns gold. You're going to move back. Get on the edge. Facing him. Get a range taunt. He jumps. So you're stunned. You shake it off. You come walk around like this. DPS, DPS. You're watching the pad behind him. Starts to turn gold. You head over. Get in position here. Get a range taunt off. He jumps and smacks you. You're stunned. You come up and you walk him around like this. Okay? Off tank. You're here in the group. You're debuffing the boss. You're just, standing here looking pretty. As soon as that pad starts to turn gold, you move. Because the Hulk's about to spawn. You're going to do a range taunt and you're going to tab target him. And you're going to position yourself here. He's going to come in and you're going to walk around like this. Because when he squats to stun, as soon as you bash him, you will push him back onto the pad so that he gets cleave. When the Hulk is out, the main tank has the responsibility of bashing rakkhat. Because rakkhat will do this maneuver where he basically throws his hand up in the air. He is actually empowering the Hulk when he does that, and you can bash it. Because the next hit that the Hulk does is empowered and it hurts. Alright, so off tank, you're here, you're debuffing, you're doing all that good stuff. That pad starts to turn. You're going to get here, range taunt once. Pull him here, make sure he's tab targeted, walk him around. Bash him when he starts to squat. He moves back onto the pad. They're together. Life is good. What about the slams? The Hulk will do a slam, and as the off tank, or even the main tank, you can only take 2. The third slam shatters you. You have no armor. So you hear me calling out, first slam, second slam. What I'm doing is telling the main tank, as soon as that second slam goes out, we have a finite amount of time for you to pick him up so I don't get that third slam.
So that's when the 2 tanks switch?
That's when the main tank picks up the Hulk and moves to the next pad. And there's a couple of ways. So the off tank, what your job is you're following like a puppy. Because that Hulk is going to squat again and try and get his stun off, and it's your responsibility to bash him again. Yeah. There's 2 ways to do this. 2 ways to position the Hulk. The first way is, as the main tank, you're going to pick him up and you're going to run wide, close to the center pad, back in, and you're just going to turn your back to him. Okay? So it puts you in the correct position for rakkhat. And as soon as the Hulk slams you, the main tank picks him back up. And he's in position. I'm going to move this gate real quick.
Wait, so if I'm the main tank
Mm-hmm.
and I taunt the Hulk off for third slam,
Mm-hmm.
then what do I do?
You're going to... Okay, so this is where it gets kind of hairy on this pad, because a couple of things could be happening. Generally speaking, when he gets his second slam off, usually 1 of 2 things is happening. Either you're getting a barrage or meteors are going off.
Yeah.
If it's a barrage, you have about 2 seconds from the time that raid notifier tells you barrage until it starts to go off.
To get my taunt then?
You could, yeah. I'm not that skilled. Sometimes I can get it off, sometimes not. But
okay.
When you've got barrage, it'll say barrage, and you can, if you can see him well enough and get a taunt off on him, do it, and then just stand there and take your barrage. The other thing you could do is, you know, the off tank takes a chance that there will not be a third slam when the barrage ends, and then you pick him up quickly at that point. As soon as you pick him up, you book it for this next pad.
And I do the wide turn? Or?
You can do it that way. There's another way you can do it. The idea is to have the Hulk facing your back. So you can do a wide turn, or one thing some people will do, they'll run across the pad, overshoot it, turn around and come back.
What do you mean the Hulk facing my back? Like,
all right. So I'm going to, hang on.
How am I going to be standing for rakkhat again? So is rakkhat facing the group?
Yes. Yes. And having the Hulk in this position, the off tank just comes up right behind him, pierces him, and then the Hulk literally turns around. And again, you're in good position because when he squats, you bash him and you move him up on the pad when you bash him.
Makes it easier to cleave as well.
Exactly. The idea is that you only pass that Hulk back and forth once. If you have to pass it back and forth more than once, it gets really sticky.
Okay, so can we take more than 3 smashes, just not 3 in a row? Is that
Nope.
what it is?
Yeah, okay. That's a good question. So when you get, so as the off tank, you got your 2 slams, okay? And you're coming around and you're following him and you bash him and he gets 1 slam on the main tank. That's when you pick him back up.
Okay.
Every single time.
Gotcha.
Another thing to be mindful of is this pad and the gold buff, okay? The main tank has to have it or they will die to rakkhat's light attack. Now, once the main tank is on the pad and they've got the buff, as the off tank, Yeah, you can dance on the pad. As DPS, you can dance on the pad. It's no big deal. But if you're unsure of the timing, stay off. Alright, so that's transition from pad 2 to pad 3.
Hey, quick question.
Shoot.
So I've seen some tanks, they bring reflective plate
Mhm.
to reduce the incoming damage from the barrage.
Mhm.
Since it's considered a projectile, will
Mhm.
that work?
So I will tell you a better thing, and this is what we have done in the past, and I think it actually works even better now, is you alternate, if you're a DK, you alternate Igneous with Absorb Missile. Because
okay, yeah.
Yep, when you take damage, it will heal you. So yeah, Absorb Missile and Igneous. If you're a Nightblade tank, you alternate Absorb Missile with Mirage. Templar tank, you would alternate Absorb Missile with Blazing Shield. So yeah.
So like, this is the first pad, right? And I'm
Yes,
tanking
that's correct.
Rakkhat like this.
Yes.
And then on this pad, I'm tanking Rakkhat like this.
Yeah.
And then on this pad, I'm tanking Rakkhat like this.
Nope. You're in that.
That's what I was confused
Okay,
about.
so you're
like,
in.
What happens after that?
Okay.
I don't feel like I should be like that the whole time.
Because I haven't showed you.
Oh, okay.
All right. So you're in this position so that the off tank can pick up the Hulk. When Rakkhat lands, you're just gonna do the walk around like this. Now,
So that he turns.
I would advise on these pads here to be just a little off center because of meteors. You have to stay on the pad to keep the gold buff, but
so
you
I need space to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To do the
Walk
square
around.
dance. Mm-hmm.
In J-Dub's video, he says to like half moon it, just move
Mhm.
back and forth.
That's
straight.
what I do. I literally go side to side. Now you'll see some people like Inigo will do like a triangle. He'll go here, 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 and here.
Yeah.
You know,
as long as you're not like double backing.
Right.
To
Right.
meteors.
And that's why it's so important your meteor runners are on their game. Because getting hit with meteors on this pad, you don't have that much room. So they need to help keep you alive by getting those meteors out of the group quickly. Okay, so, all right, so you've walked Rakkhat around. This pad,
So like Seven's the off tank.
Uh-huh.
I let him get the Hulk, and then I start moving Rakkhat.
Yeah. Yeah, because when he picks up the Hulk, Rakkhat's gonna land.
Okay.
And he'll stun you, and then you'll just walk him around. And then Seven will bash him when he squats, put him in so he's getting cleave. You're on this pad for 60 seconds. The cardinal pads. Okay, so let's talk about positions. Cardinal pads are 1, 3, 5, and 7. If you're going to be doing an achievement called Fang Focus and you have to go lunar phase, generally you put your melee tunes on cardinal pads. Your range tunes will be on pads 2, 4, 6, and 8. But yeah, that's the position, and that's why you really want to maximize your horn uptime on this pad because it's so long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So then, all right, we're here, and that pad starts to glow gold. I gotta go to it, okay? Again, your position is going to be with your back to the pad behind you at about the top of the circle. Okay? And just like before, when he jumps and he stuns you, as soon as you get up, you're going to walk him around like this. You'll have a Hulk come from the center. You're going to tab target him, and you're going to walk him around like this. This pad is a short pad. Here. He'll get, and it's very, very probable that he will get 2 slams off, and then you'll get a barrage. But when you pick him up, okay, the off tank's got to follow because he's got a bash. You can either swing wide or you can run across the pad and overshoot. But either way, you have to get into this position just like you were on 3. so that when the Hulk slams you, all the off-tank has to do is pierce, and the Hulk turns around. Rakkhat lands, you're stunned, you walk him around. And that's pretty much it for the pads. Main tank. On the pads, you do not get unstable voids, you do not get tethers, you do not get beach balls. Off tank, you get all three chances. Doesn't mean you will, but you're just like the DPS in that regard. A hinky situation came up on our no death run, and I haven't seen it in a while, so I panicked a little bit. We were here and Fell, I had the second slam, and meteors were starting, and Fell picked up the Hulk, and I got an unstable void right away. And that's when I called out, OT has unstable void, and I had to take it to the wall. The reason it's hinky is because then it requires the DPS to keep an eye on that Hulk and bash him if he squats, because I can't. Alright, so that is essentially the tank role during that part of the fight. For healers, what you want to do is, generally speaking, you will have a healer who is going to be a kiter and one that will be in the stack. Your stack healer, pretty much on every pad, needs to be roughly in this position here, because your combat prayer and all your goodies need to fan out across the DPS in front of you. The kite healer usually is back here. Not too far, okay? But enough so that when meteors start, they've already got a head start out. As the kite healer, you're going to shield, and you're going to breath of life. If you're a Templar. If you're a warden, you can do mushrooms or combat prayer. As the range, or as the kite healer, you've got to keep an eye on the other two kiters, and more often than not, the kite healer is going to be kiting the middle path, which is across the pads. Okay? And the DPS will be on this is what we call the inner path, along that inner pad, or wall. You've got a DPS that's going to be kiting along the wall. If you get an unstable void when you're kiting, you just keep on running. This is when I started running tripods as a healer, because I needed stam to break out of the unstable void stun while I was kiting meteors. If you're a DPS running meteors and you get unstable void, you just run your path up against the wall or up against the middle. Hey Chad, how you doing? So
as a healer, then, if you're kiting, do you try to stay slightly behind where the two other kiters are so you can keep a better eye on them?
No. They are responsible for knowing where you are and adjusting. So you take up your position, and your range kiters, if they're range, they need to know where you are and adjust so they get the buffs. I've had healers back up to try and get behind those kiters. It's a waste of time and energy. They need to adjust to you. Doing all right. Doing an instructional video.
Now, there should not be any compromise if, excuse me, my voice is going, any compromise if we run across the middle of the pad, as long as it's not blue or gold. Because
correct.
If it's gold, then I'm going to pick up the buff rather than the tank. Okay.
Correct. Now, theoretically, if you run across a gold pad and you come off of it, the gold buff should drop. Sometimes it does not. You don't want to take that chance. So then what do you do if you're kiting and that pad's gold? You just skirt the edge. If the pad is blue, you want to skirt the edge.
Got it.
One thing you can also do is, I think it's 5 meteors that hit. You don't have to run 5. You don't have to run 5 meteors out. You can actually run 3 out and 2
and then
in.
2 back. That's usually what I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when do the healers move? The stack healer stays with the DPS. As long as Rakkhat is on this pad, I don't care if it's blue or gold or whatever, as long as Rakkhat is here, the DPS should stay there and continue to DPS him. And the stack healer should stay there and continue to heal them. As soon as he jumps, you shield up, and then you move. The kite healer, the meteor kiter, you can move early. Because you want to kind of keep an eye on the tanks as they're transitioning.
You see the pad turn gold like the tank would.
I would actually wait until the tanks move. And then follow them. As the kite healer. But the stack healer and the DPS, as long as he is there and has not jumped, they need to stay there and keep DPSing him. A lot of times when the tank moves, a lot of the DPS will start to migrate back. And that's incorrect.
So even though the tank moves, the DPS and the group healers stay on Rakkhat until Rakkhat moves to the next pad.
You are correct.
Okay.
Okay. Healers, you also are subject to Unstable Void, Tethers, and Beach Balls. Now, this is... Okay. This is pad 3, pad 4. Tethers start in transition from pad 4 to pad 5. Okay? As the stack healer, you want to kind of roughly be in this area here. Okay? Adara High, the little cat, she's usually right there, crouched down. Okay? So your DPS are going to be in front of you. And the tethers come from the center and attach. They need to be kiting those tethers around and away. Now, I have seen people literally kite a tether in a circle. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me, but you gotta move. Because if that ball hits you, you take a ton of damage.
I know a thing I do a lot of times is move too fast, so it breaks.
So it breaks. Well, they're broken too. So, you know, even if you are just moving at your regular speed, sometimes they'll break. And that's not anything you did, it's just that mechanic is a little broken.
And it's harder these days with all the expedition going
Right.
out there. It seems
Right.
like everyone has abilities that will be faster.
This pad here, the cardinal pad, is another 60 seconds. So when he jumps, I don't have the other pads out here, but when he goes to pad 6, we're going to have another Hulk. Okay? And we're just going to repeat. It's a rinse and repeat. The tanking positions, the healing positions, are all rinse and repeat for each pad. So we have a Hulk here. Main tank's going to pick up the Hulk. Off tank's going to follow. Bash. Main tank gets the Hulk in position. Rakkhat jumps. Main tank moves him around. Off tank's got a hold of the Hulk. The Hulk dies. Pew pew. DPS. Yada yada. Main tank is watching that other pad. And as soon as the edges start to turn a little wispy gold, you move. And position.
I'll be right back. I gotta go try and get some of these stupid runes. They're cheap right now.
Sure.
Somebody put up a bunch of cheap ones.
So would you recommend, Dragon, if you're the kiter, once the tank starts to move, not Rakkhat, but when the tank starts to move, would you recommend us to move?
Yeah. I would let the tanks do their thing and I would follow behind them.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's more than fine. But the key is the DPS staying put and the stack healer staying put. Ideally, combat prayer uptime from the stack healer should be 95% or higher. If it's lower than that, you're not using the right spells. What Jen and Axoa did on our no death clear is before we even engage the boss, Jen told Axoa, I will Ellie drain the Hulk. you take care of Rakkhat. All right, Glitter. So you get those comms and those instructions clear from the very beginning. But uptime on Ellie Drain should be 95% and higher. Those are the goals. And as stack healer, it's easy. Easy peasy to get that up because your combat prayers are spammable now. If you put down a ritual and the barrage is going off, your focus is the tank. And what you do is you drop your ritual, you drop one illustrious healing, and you spam your combat prayer. And that will get them through, along with their mitigation, that'll get them through the barrage.
Is there any reason where you would use Power of the Light?
No. Actually, we did on our no death run, and we're going to drop it because it just didn't give as much. I mean, that minor fracture and minor breach really, all things considered, I mean, Jen offered to run it, but I'm like, no, let's do a run without it and just see. But I don't think it's going to make that big a difference.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, stack healer, you've got an easy job in that you just put one orb out and it hits everybody. Now, one thing I didn't tell you guys about were the runners in the back room. Okay? A lot of times they will go back early when everybody's on the second pad. Okay? But the actual mobs in the back room appear when they're transitioning to the third pad. And there's 2 left, 2 right, and 2 back. A lot of times, if the off-tank's Hulk is dead, they'll watch the center and they'll call out, you know, you still have 1 right, 1 back, or whatever. Because if those ads are sinking by the time we get to the 4th pad here, it's going to be a wipe. There's a lot going on. It's a busy fight. There are some extra baddies in hard mode, and there's some extra, you know, things that people have to be mindful of in hard mode. But the reason I tell the stack healer and DPS to stay on Rakkhat is because, again, in hard mode, you've got to be healing the group. And when he does his jump, when the pad turns blue and you DPS and he finally decides he's going to jump to the main tank on the next pad, he does what's called a lunar slam. And if you're not shielding and blocking through that on hard mode, it's a one-shot for DPS. And healer, actually. Does anybody have any questions about the Rakkhat fight?
That was great.
Okay. Was this helpful at all?
Very.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very much.
Okay. It's just really, really hard to come into these fights, the twins and Rakkhat, and try and explain to the tanks and the healers what they're supposed to be doing. I find it's so much easier when you can actually go through the motions and see where people are positioned for it to kind of stick.
Oh, yeah, I'll be getting Cold Harbor Estate now just for this reason regularly.
So I mean that's the main idea of this. Couple of other things on the first fight on Jahasa. One thing that I want to get people comfortable with, that fight can be relatively easy if people stay still. If people go to their positions and they stay still so they don't spread curses. If curses are never spread and only 3 go out at a time, there will always be pads up to cleanse. Always. Now, the caveat is that of the 3 pads that are up and available, 2 of them may be tank healer pads. But you know what? If that's the case, that means the tank and the healers didn't get cursed. And that means you can take those pads. The main thing.
Wait a minute. I thought it was you or Jen said you do not touch those pads under any circumstance.
No, it was neither of us.
You said that. Then.
Nope.
Somebody
Nope.
said it.
It wasn't me and it wasn't Jen. I will bet my paycheck.
Oh, I know who it was. Okay, never mind. I'll shut up. Yes, we were told not to use those pads.
Well, here's why. Okay, here's the reason why. New groups will spread curses because they're uncomfortable staying still. And when curses are spread, yes, you're not going to have enough pads. But if you're doing your part and you're staying still and you're not spreading curses, and of the 3 pads, 2 of those are tank healer pads, that tells you the tank and healer didn't get cursed. That's why we have the tank and healer call out when they get cursed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, what I will say about that particular fight is if you stay still, you listen to your tanks and your healers, you will always have a pad to cleanse. It may not be in an ideal position, okay? I mean, on our no-death run, Mental had to literally go across the room to cleanse. But there was a pad up. So I will say from the main tank position when you're holding Jahasa, you can see if people are spreading curses. And that's it. You don't want to panic. There's no reason to. Okay? I did that fight as a Stam Sork. And I was on position 4, which is his right shoulder. And the person who was at his right butt cheek, position 3, we were roughly like, he was here and I was here, and our circles didn't touch, and we stayed still.
I didn't have anybody spread curse onto me, but I sure as hell had somebody ninja pad right out from
I had someone ninja pad 3 times. I was cursed, and I went to this pad, someone rolled in front of me. I went to this pad, someone rolled in front of me. I went to this pad, someone... And okay, so think about it, though. You've had 3 people that are taking pads, and I'm cursed. That means curses were spread. That's why, as a tank on Jahasa, it is critical you keep the boss still. It is critical that when you do the swap, the way it works, if the main tank holding the boss gets cursed, they call out, "I'm cursed." The off tank comes up, and the initial handoff, they can pierce at any time and pick him up. But you do not move until your off tank has the boss. As soon as they have the boss, you go to your pad and you cleanse and you come back and you hang out here because your roles have switched. And you chain the cats. And you debuff the boss. What do you do if both of you are cursed? The one who's out here always cleanses first. You cleanse first. You come back. When can I pick up the boss? Because you don't want to over taunt. Pick him up now. Pierce, you have him? Yep. Main tank goes and cleanses. So, yes and no. Here's what I'll say about the pads. You can park a pad. The curse takes 19 seconds to kill you. The pads come up every 25 seconds. If you see a pad that has less than 17 seconds on it, park it. It will come up before you die. I would rather you park a pad than stand in group and die because you didn't want to go out there and stand on it. I've had people park pads in the middle of shield phase. They just shield up.
Clarifying question for you, because this is something else we were told not to do. We were told not to stand on a pad.
Okay.
Waiting for it to come back up.
The way I run my groups is I want you on that pad, and here's why.
Okay, got it. All right. No, I understand exactly what you're saying.
If the countdown is really, really close and you're standing next to the pad, you may be paralyzed before you could get on it. Now, what I will tell you is this, it's very interesting. how you can tell you're being targeted for a pillar is you have a very large AoE circle forming underneath you. If you see that, you hold block, and guess what happens? That pillar bounces.
So now I have an obnoxious question, which is, next time we go in there, do you want us to do what you're telling us to do, or what the raid leader's telling us to do?
Well, for right now, we'll have, I mean, it's what the raid leader tells you to do, but I'm hoping that as people get experience in there, we'll standardize it more. The issue, again, has to do with how new the group is and how much you expect curses to be spread. So if it's an experienced group, fuckers better be parking pads. And they better be taking pads that are open, because I know they're not going to spread curses. If it's a brand new group that's never been in there, I'm going to expect them to spread curses. And I'm going to tell them, okay, look guys, whether you die in group or on a pad is going to be determined by you. So nail your fucking feet to the floor and don't move until your screen turns blue. Most people, honestly, if you tell them to relax and to stay still, they will. Some will panic, and that's understandable. But pads 1 and pad 6 are historically the tank and healer pads. Now, sometimes what you'll have groups do is they'll do 1 and 6 as tank pads, 2 and 5 as healer. That's 4 out of 6 pads that are being tied up. You're going to have DPS die every single time. And you don't want that. If the tanks and healers don't get cursed, that's 4 pads that are open. It will be up by the time the next set of curses go out. It's about paying attention and listening when you hear healer cursed or tank cursed. And it comes with comfort level in that particular fight. Another thing that I've noticed with the...
If you're ranged getting clear to where one of those tank or healer pads is, means you're going all the way across the group.
Here's the thing about the range. When the curses go out and people start moving, you need to move in. Another curse isn't going to go out for a little bit. The pillars choose the furthest person away. Eventually, you're going to get a pillar on a pad, NBD. Can you still cleanse on that pad even though there's a pillar there? Actually, you can. You can DPS through the pillar. But it's just going to be the law of averages that you're going to end up with a pillar far away. But you want the majority of them close in.
Yeah, for me, pillars wasn't so much the issue as it was the pad.
Now, I will say this. On Raid Notifier, the little pad box, it sometimes bugs out. And I noticed, at least on one of our runs, I was looking at it and I was looking over there going, okay, the box is saying that pad's open, but it's not. The box is saying that pad is taken, but it's glowing like it's fine. So you just kind of have to be aware. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. If you're not moving and you're not spreading curses, there will always be pads available to cleanse. Understand your proximity to your neighbor. When you get the diagram and it shows you what position you are, the first thing you should do is you should look and see, okay, who's going to be on my left and who's going to be on my right. And you orient yourself to that every single time. Shield phase, as long as your circle isn't crossing over your neighbor's feet, then you're in good position. The circles are going to overlap a little bit in order for the healers to keep you alive. And that's okay. You just do not want the edge of your circle during shield phase to overlap your neighbor's feet. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any additional questions? So I would also like to encourage you guys to look in the strategy channel for vMOL. There are a lot of really cool diagrams in there. They seem overwhelming at first, but I will tell you, when I was tanking vMOL, I had those diagrams printed off, and I had them in front of me every single time I ran. So I knew where mobs would spawn, and it would help me with positioning. You know, and I had them in front of me for months until I got it down. But check the channel out because it does have a lot of good information. It has some really good clips too. And it has actually, Jen and I, our first hard mode clear in it too, that we got. So take advantage of those strat channels. There's a lot of good information in there. I am going to be doing additional raid lead instructional videos. And I'm hoping I can do more workshops like this. I do want to do a workshop on positioning for Asylum. And I would like to also do a positioning workshop for Zamaja, for Cloud Rest. I think that, you know, even just a 10 or 15 minute mock stack goes a long way. If there are ideas that you guys have that you would like to, you know, have put in a video, send me a DM. If you want to, you know, do, I don't know, a mock stack for the Warrior, for hard mode Hell Ra, you know, just send me a message and I'll see if I can get it arranged. The reason I bought the Cold Harbor Estate is because I can lay stuff out like this. Jen and I can come in here, we can do the measurements, and we can actually get it to scale.
No, this was very helpful.
Oh, this is fabulous.
Anytime you have questions, be sure and hit us up. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you guys came and you were able to get some benefit from this, because the next time you go in there, the nickel's gonna drop. I promise. All right, well, if there are no further questions, it is about time for us to wrap up. We are approaching our 2-hour mark. I want to thank all of you guys for coming and being patient and asking wonderful questions. And, you know, don't be afraid to sign up for the opens. Usually we denote which trial rank we want to bring. However, if you don't see your trial rank there and you really, really want to go, send a DM to the raid lead and let them know. And they'll put you down as a fill. And if we don't have enough people, then you'll get a shot at coming to it.
Dragon, in regards to ranks, I think I mentioned to you in the DM, you know, I haven't been using logs for very long. Do you want me to upload them to my personal, or whenever I do have the certain number of clears or what have you? I mean, I've done them. I just don't have them where I can show them to you.
So here's the beauty of ESO logs. It doesn't have to be you uploading the log.
Yeah, sure enough. As long as I have a link to wherever it was done.
Exactly. And really and truly, I've had people send where what they'll do is they'll pull the ESO log up and they will screenshot and they'll put an arrow next to their name to show their DPS or show, you know, whatever. And they just send that as an attachment. And that works fine. Yeah, I mean, that worked beautifully.
Speaking of, does anybody know, because I didn't see him get posted, the VAA run from yesterday? It wasn't posted.
I think, well, I know that Boom was trying to post it and she was working with Jen. There was some kind of error that popped up from that. I would advise people to run their own logs, and you can put it under, you know, your own personal thing just in case something like that happens. I am really bad. I will be the first to admit in forgetting to start my logs. I used to rely on the add-on that did it automatically, but then it broke. And yeah, So I'm bad about it. But there are some people in group who are exceptionally diligent about it. And
there's
you know,
some really good instructions in the ESO log pinned at the top in the guild chat too.
The logs have a lot of information in them. If there's ever a time that you guys want a tutorial or you want to go through the logs with Jen or myself, you know, or Cold Forge or Boom or any of the, you know, any of the founders, or because they look at the logs constantly, then, you know, say something, because, you know, the more you know what we're looking at, the more you know what we're looking for, the easier it's going to be on you as far as being able to meet the metrics. And, you know, just like Weedy sent me a couple of parses last night, and he was frustrated because he couldn't get his DPS up. And I started looking at it, and I was like, wait a minute. If you're parsing, this and this need to be this much higher. And pointing that one thing out boosted his DPS by 5k. And sometimes it's just those little tweaks. We have a lot of very experienced raiders in the group that are very kind and very helpful. And if you are struggling and if you are hitting a wall, whether it's healing, tanking, or DPS, hit up the experts, because they probably have made all the mistakes you're making in order to get where they are. All right. Well, again, thank you guys for coming. I greatly appreciate it. And I will have the video. I'm going to save it. I'm probably going to upload it to my YouTube just so it's saved. But if you have any questions later on, be sure and DM me. Okay?
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so that ends my instructional video for positioning in vMOL with the twins and with Rakkhat. I certainly hope it was helpful. I'm hopeful that my guild mates will use this video as refresher and reminder. Jeneth and I have been doing vMOL now for 3.5 years. We started on the PTS when it came out. Our group was one of the first groups to clear Jahasa on the PTS, and we've been in there ever since. So it's one of the few trials that she and I literally know like the back of our hand. I feel like it was one of the most elegantly designed trials that ZOS has ever done. I don't think anything that they've done since then even comes close. I think maybe the closest would be Halls of Fabrication, but vMOL by and large is my favorite trial. I am hoping that I can do positional videos and instruction for the various other trials, and I will have those recorded as well. So for those of you hanging out with me in chat and watching the video, I appreciate your time, and I wish you a good day. So thank you very much.